And we're live. Welcome back, Shifties. Welcome back to Shift the Journey. I'm your host, Tito Amogus. If I have to mute my microphone, I forgot to tell you in the studio, Jim. If I have to mute my microphone, it's because I'm gonna have a sneezing attack. I was like under the weather. But I was trying to tell you, like, you gotta smile when we go live because for some reason I can't change the thumbnail on LinkedIn, and it likes to get us like making these weird faces. And I can't promise anything, but I can promise you that I will change the thumbnail on YouTube. But I can't do it here without like editing the whole thing. So anyway, yeah. So welcome back, everybody. Once again, yeah, I'm Tito. So this is my passion project where I love to help people who are looking for some kind of change in their career through storytelling. And our guest today is Jim Eselgroth. Man, I hope I said that right. I said that right, right? Okay, cool. I get my name butchered. I say this every week. I get my name butchered probably every day. So it's important to me to at least give a really good college try. Because a
Valid,
lot,
valid.
yeah, a lot of times people go, they look at my name, they're like, I can't read that. I'm like, you didn't even try. Just try. They're like, no, I'm gonna offend you. And I'm like, trust me, you will not offend me. I've heard them all
I've
though.
heard it all.
I
My
mean, yeah,
last
I've
my
heard.
last name has gone through different variations across from adolescence to now. People have
Oh
had fun.
yeah,
So
my TI basic training. He called me ammo because he's like, I'm not reading that, you know. And then
oh
in tech school, somebody, as I was walking into, like, I was in missile school, cruise missile school, and I was walking into the bay. There's like all these different teams working on different missiles, and and it's like high ceiling, right? Somebody goes Magwai, and then everybody called me a Magwai after that. I'm like, bro, come on. But that was a tech school name.
no, when
Anyway,
I was going through, what was it? What's the thing you go to before going on a basic training? MEPS.
Meps, yeah.
So when I was at MEPS and I walk in to talk to the Air Force liaison, I walk in there and the guy butchers my last name. And I was like, it's pronounced Eselgroth. And he stopped mid sentence, looked at me like I said something really insulting to him. And he was like, do you think he's all doing the knife hand? Do you think they're going to care when you get to basic training how to pronounce your last name? And I was like, by the mere implication, I was like, no, sir. He's like, that's right. Fast forward, after like the first 24 48 hours, it's just absolute hell, and it settles down. My TI's walking around the room, like he walks up to me, he's like, hey, I don't want to butcher your last name, how do you say it? And I was like, but the guy said you wouldn't care.
That's funny. So, yeah, I saw that you served like 23 plus years in the Air
Yeah,
Force, right?
yep, 23 and a half.
So, where are you from originally?
OG, I am from the burbs of Philly.
Okay, Burbs of Philly. Is that
Yeah,
what
just
that accent is? I've been trying to figure it out. I knew it was somewhere in the Northeast. I just didn't know
Well,
where.
the irony is that I was born in Idaho Falls, Idaho. I lived in Richland, Washington until Mount St. Helens blew up, and then we moved across
Oh,
the U.S. And then I was raised basically in the burbs of Philly, but I've been all over, so I almost
oh.
have like an agnostic accent.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I hear a lot of that, like
But I
Northeast.
but I do have some of that northeasty.
I don't hear the Eastern Washington. My first base was Fairchild, and so you're
Hmm,
from what do they call it? The Tri Cities, Richland, Kennewick, and
yeah, but I was
Pasco,
only down
right?
there for like 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well,
So
that makes sense. So, as you were growing up, did you come from a military family?
not a traditional military family. My dad was in the Navy. He did 4 years. He worked for Admiral Rickover and helped design the first nuclear powered submarine, but he was only
Oh,
in for four
sick.
years. And Rickover handpicked him out of MIT.
Wow.
And so he joined the Navy. He was actually down here in DC in the Naval Yard,
Okay.
working on designing that. Did 4 years, got an offer he couldn't refuse, and that was the only military experience, so to speak, that I had around me before I joined.
Yeah. So, like, when you were in high school, was it something that you said, "Hey, this is my plan. I'm going to join the military." Like
No.
4 years, go to college. That's what we all said, right?
Right. Well, no, no. I knew. I actually wanted to be a comic book artist in high school.
Wow.
I actually went so far as I visited one of my camp mates up in Brooklyn, and I was staying with him. I went up and visited with him in my junior year of high school. Went out and visited him, and I went to DC Comic headquarters in New York City. Went in there,
Wow.
brought my portfolio, walked inside there. I was like, I want to be a comic book artist, and some lady, she was sitting there like this. If you could picture, it's like a green desk from like the 70s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And like at the metal drawer that like creaks when you like
Yeah.
open it. And she sits me down next to her, and she's like, "You and every other kid." And so she opens up her drawer, she like pats me on the head and like tosses a comic book at me, and she's like, "Now beat it." And I was like, oh, so I can't do this. And
Wow.
I basically was like, "Yeah, here's a comic book kid, now beat it." And I was like, "Oh, maybe I'm not going to do that." And so my parents were like, I knew I was not ready for college at the time.
Yeah.
And so my parents were like, "Hey, you're not gonna," at the time, I think I was working part time as in a restaurant. So I was working the back of the house. And so
Mhm.
I'd moved up from like dishwasher to like prep cook, and I was getting ready to start the line, and I was like moving up in the world, and I was like, I'm going to go do this. And my parents were like, "Yeah, so you're not going to do that for the rest of your life. So
Mhm.
you need to do something with your life." They're like, "I don't know, maybe join the military." And I was like, "Oh, the military. That'd be interesting." And so I talked to a recruiter, and I didn't know anything about the military. So at the
Wow.
time, I was like, I didn't know that there was like a bajillion different opportunities inside the military. So the
Yeah.
recruiter was very happy with me. This is the mid '90s.
Yeah.
So, we're coming off of the Gulf War. Nothing's happening yet. And so it's nice and quiet. So they got hard quotas that they're trying to meet. And so I walk
Mhm.
into the recruiting station, and I was like, "So I want to be a cop or a cook, I think." And that dude was like, "Oh my God, I got my quota right here." And so he puts me down for cop. So I come in security police.
Wow. That's nuts. I knew a bunch of people who went in to be cops, and actually there was only one who did it on purpose. Everybody else was like, "Oh, I'm going to open general,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see what
Knew a
happens."
lot. Ran into a lot of those. I want an open general. This isn't the open general I wanted.
Right. Yeah. And the one guy I knew who joined specifically to go to security forces back then, SP, right? He in our flight, he was the only person who scored higher than me on the SVAB. That's not me bragging. That's me saying, dude, you scored this high on the SVAB when you chose to be a cop. But he grew up is an Air Force brat, and
Yeah.
he looked up to these guys. I think his dad was also NSP. So, but so when you joined, did you what at what point did you go? You know what? I think I'm gonna be a lifer.
Ooh. Um, well, two things probably happened at the round, or probably two or three things happened kind of all at the same time to answer the lifer, right? Because as you know, you join for one reason and you'll stay for another,
Oh yeah,
right?
stay for a million others actually.
Right, a bajillion others, right? So,
Yeah.
so I got there's probably three. One, by that point, so when I was at my first base, I met my wife. We had our first kid. Um, uh, she was uh, she was in the Air Force as well, and we got stationed in Germany. So I ended up going to Germany for 3 years, which was awesome.
Wow.
That was my
Ramstein?
second. That was my second duty station. What'd you say?
Did you go to Ramstein?
I was. Yep, I was at
Oh,
Ramstein. I was in a
nice.
unit that really kind of no longer exists.
Mhm.
It was called the USAFE Elite Guard. And
Okay.
so we were responsible for guarding the commander and vice commander of USAFE, as well as their German counterpart on Ramstein. So
Okay.
we locked down the headquarters, their homes, as well as we had protective details associated with them. And then we were also kind of like the Air Force Honor Guard in Europe. And
Yeah.
so we were also there kind of like we were doing really cool ceremonies. So like every May, our unit would break up and some of us would go to Normandy to do a 21 gun salute at Normandy. Some of us would go to Paris, France. Some of us would go to other places. My team, I was always on the team that went to Paris, France. And so we got a huge burial grounds just outside Paris on hills. And so I've been out there to help do some stuff. And then well, it's all over Europe. General
cool.
Jumper was the main 4-star during my time there, and so we spent a lot of time. He had us doing all kinds of cool stuff all over Europe. We did the 50th anniversary of the Berlin Airlift and a joint thing in Berlin, which was awesome. So that exposed me to a whole bunch of different things.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then, but one of the things is we were also pregnant with our second. So this is coming onto the turn of the century. And
make me feel like, yeah, I joined the Air Force, came in on my wagon, it's just like turn of the century. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Terrible.
So 2000 was coming around, and so I had enjoyed aspects of being security police, and now it was security forces. So I lived that transition in the mid 98ish, and was like I wanted to try something else. But the Air Force doing its restructuring, because again I wanted to go back down that comic book path. So I was still doing art, and so I wanted to go graphic artist. And the Air Force was like, so we're getting rid of that.
Oh wow.
And so it's no longer. And plus, the Air Force in their realignment said, if you want to retrain, you could either go canine or combat arms. Those are your two options. And I was like, I have a wife and kids, and I'm mechanically inclined, so I'm gonna throw my hat in the combat arms one.
Yeah.
And so I retrained into combat arms, got that role, and then that kind of that happened with a re-enlistment bonus, because once I retrained into that, I could get the re-enlistment bonus. Yeah. So between the family and getting a new job, and then getting stationed at Vandenberg out in California, that was kind of like the turning point of like
Lompoc,
right? Yes, Lompoc.
Yeah. It's funny. Incidentally, I went to missile school at Vandenberg.
Yeah.
And so I was there like February to, I don't know, it was like February, March, April, May, June, July. Oh yeah, February to July of 96. And it was fun because like my hometown was not too far away. Well, I mean like 4 hours, 5 hours. And so like long weekend, boom, I'm down there. One thing about Vandenberg that I tell people all the time, I say, man, it's like sits on top of these cliffs overlooking, the Pacific. And one time we're all chilling outside, and then all of a sudden somebody said, "What is that?" We were looking down the street. What is that? It's like, what do you mean? What is that? Is something on fire? It's like, I don't know what that is. It was fog, and it came in so fast. We went inside, shut the doors, and you could see, like out the windows, you could see nothing. We were in a cloud. And so that happened to me one time when I was driving back from a long weekend, like hanging out with my parents and my girlfriend at the time. And driving back, I was late. I got in so much trouble driving back, and I was like on the freeway, and I could not see like 5 feet in front of me. So the fog at Vandenberg, man, in that whole area of the Central Coast, crazy.
The wind too. The wind was crazy. It was the only time the wind didn't blow was the month of December. and I was working on the firing range on the backside, so it was on the Santa Maria side of Vandenberg, facing that side, so up one. And that was quite an experience doing that, because doing combat arms and being in there and watching the rockets, like them launching rockets all the time was like the coolest. The irony is that in my 23 years, I only flew on one military aircraft.
Really?
And it was a Huey, at Vandenberg.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
nuts.
that wasn't by design. That was purely accident. I would have
Interesting.
loved to have flown on any other stuff, but it's just the way that a cookie crumbled. That was the
Yeah.
only military
Wow.
aircraft I ever flew on was a Huey, and we were doing because Vandenberg sits on like I think 110,000 acres,
Yeah, it's a lot.
and so there's no fence line. You're not paying for a
Yeah.
fence line to wrap that. So
Mhm.
they were doing some stuff, and they needed security forces to ride along and just do. They were doing a perimeter check, and so I
Mhm.
got to ride on the side of the Huey with the door open and like everything beneath me.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah, it was
Cool.
fun. It was
I
fun.
rode in a Huey once. So when I was at Fairchild, they're like, "Hey, young single airman, the National Guard is gonna be here. Air National Guard's here. They're doing exercises over the weekend. Does anybody wanna, show up and be, like, wounded?" It's like, "Oh, okay." So I went, like, 3 hours early so they could do makeup and, like, they're staging us and stuff, and, like, I was burned, so, like, they put, like, all this stuff on my face, the moulage or whatever, so I looked like I burned and my hands were burned, and it was, like, freezing cold, like, freezing and
Oh
raining,
yeah.
and, we were laying in this parking lot of the dining facility, the survival, dining facility, and I remember laying there and I was like, "Man, I'm cold," so I put my hands on my pockets, and then I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be fun," because they said, "Hey, you have to act like this is real." So there's somebody out there, and, like, I heard the helicopter land, and they're like, "We don't hear you, start moaning." So people were like, "Oh, I'm hurt, I'm injured," or whatever, and so I had my hands in my pockets, and then they're, "Oh, let's check this guy," and, like, get his pulse, and they pull my hand out, and of course I have the burn stuff here, and I'm like, "Ah!" And they're like, "Let's get him on the chopper." They put me on the helicopter, and that was the weirdest feeling ever. Like, I was just suspended in midair, and I said, "You know what? I don't ever want to get on a helicopter again." So we just went up, did one circle, and they put us down in a field that was like maybe 100 yards away. And I was like, "That was crazy." And they're like, "Ah, you're free to go." So I was like, "Cool." I got a letter
Check
of
that off my
appreciation.
list. I'm good.
Yay.
I don't want to do that again. When I did that Huey ride, they had me they were testing something on the front some sort of optics or whatever on the front of the helo, and the pilot, of course, they knew that I'm a newbie, right?
Mhm.
So they knew they're gonna have fun. So I didn't realize
Oh
this
man,
until later.
of
So they
course.
go out and they're like, "Hey, we need to check this thing out." And they go up to like 5,000 feet, and I'm 5,000 feet up, and of course, it's really cold up that high. And then they're like, and then he's like, "All right, cool, we're done. We're gonna go back down." I was like, "Awesome." Yeah, he doesn't go slow. He goes like this
Oh
and
no.
banks it straight down in his helicopter. And I'm on the side seat. I'm not the one facing the pilots. I'm on the
Yeah.
side where my toes are hanging off the edge.
No,
And
no.
I was just like, "Oh
Mm-mm.
my god." I mean, it was fun, but I'm
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was a fun, exhilarating ride.
Yeah. Nah, I'm good. Oh man. So how long were you in combat arms?
Well, that from 2000 basically until I retired in
Okay.
18. So I did a variety of different roles
Yeah.
where my combat arms expertise was utilized in one form, fashion, or another.
Mhm.
There was a moment. I think it was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, where I was the operations superintendent. At later on, I was at Goodfellow Air Force Base, and so
Okay.
I'd promoted myself out of combat arms,
Mhm.
and so I went back over to ops, and so I was the ops suit.
Mhm.
And then when I left that Goodfellow, because I was at when I left Vandenberg, I went to St. Antone and was at the schoolhouse. So I
Mhm.
taught at the Combat Arms Apprentice course. I taught at Security Forces 7 level Combat Arms Apprentice course,
Mhm.
heavy weapons, and then my last year down there, I did CAST, which is a Combat Airman's Skills Training. So it was a
Okay.
pre-deployment course
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
for folks that were getting attached to the Army, the Marines, or
Yeah.
and then I
So
went to Goodfellow.
how what years were you back there at Lackland?
So it was 2 tours there. So the
Yeah.
first one was '05, '04, '05 to 10. And then I was a
Uh-huh.
Goodfellow from 10 to 14, and then I went back. My last duty station, my last assignment would be back in a different part of Lackland,
I'm
from 14 to 18.
I'm telling you, our paths crossed. I was no, I was at so I was at Keesler. I was at Second Air Force at Keesler from
Mm.
2009 to 2015. And the first like year and a half, I was part of the Standing Val team, and we went to inspect the I can't even remember what that is now. What is it? The 70 what is it? Training wing?
17th.
17th training wing. Gosh, been a long time. But yeah, it was 15 years ago.
You
But
definitely were.
they sent me over to that side. Somebody had to come pick me up because I didn't have a rental car or anything. Came pick me up and brought me over there. And like, I don't know, I was looking at 3-ring binders, looking at policies and all that stuff. I did not enjoy that. It's just one
Yeah,
of those things.
it can be definitely tough. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, one thing about people who separated from the military, the thing that I hear people talk about all the time is like the tap GPS, whatever you want to call it. What was your experience like?
Um, if it's just about taps, I can give a point of view, but my preparation in transition was probably a little different than most.
Okay.
Which do you want to hear? What do you want to hear?
Well, okay. So, what was your? There was a couple things out of there. Like, I want to know about like what led you to go into data, because if you're doing like all these leadership positions, it's like a lot of administrative stuff, but you're not like, no, I'm a data analyst or I'm a BI developer, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
What made you think, oh, you know what, I want to go on this thing? And then what was your preparation? And then how did TAP help or hurt on your way out? So like,
Okay.
yeah.
No. It's perfect. All right. So the story starts. Well, the real transition story starts at Goodfellow, but the preparation of story starts at Goodfellow. But when I was at Lackland the first time, I got my bachelor's in computer science.
Okay.
So I knew I was going to get into technology. I just didn't know where. And at that point, when I was at like the Combat Arms Apprentice course, I led the design of these 3D animations of the detailed cycle of operations of all 6 firearms that we taught at the time.
Oh, okay.
And that was like, I was living like this awesome experience of digitization and the realm of the possible when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
I did some other stuff internally for us inside the shop at the Combat Arms Apprentice course to help them out in student delivery and other stuff, and ones and zeros, access databases, and those sort of things while I was working on my computer science degree.
Mm-hmm.
While I was at Goodfellow, a couple of things happened. One, I had an amazing chief that sat down. He had come out of Korea and he was coming into Goodfellow, finished his last year, and he was going to retire in the U.S. And he gave me some critical tidbits of insight. And the first one was, he said, Jim, if you're going to want to retire on your own terms, you need to grow your network first and foremost. So that was the first critical piece of advice. The second critical piece of advice, he said, is, stay in the Air Force as long as you can. Figure out, at this point I was in E7, and he was setting me up for success to think like, what are your 3, 5, and 10-year goals? Where do you want to go on the inside, right? So he's a chief, so he's giving me like great advice on how to make E8, what I need to do to make E9, give me all that mentorship. And then he goes, in parallel, you need to work on your path to the outside, right? Because once you go over 20, you can punch it basically anytime, right?
Yeah.
Higher tenure is one thing, but then you're in the driver's seat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, work on your other thing. You need to sit down and figure out, what your 3, 5, and 10-year goals were. So those were the two. Those two from him were critical. And the third thing was our wing commander at the time. She had this thing, she called it by the numbers, and she basically wanted like a knee board or like a crib sheet of like all the data and elements and stats that the installation provided to the local, to the state, to the federal, to the
Oh yeah.
DoD. She wanted like all of this stuff. Now I represented MSG, so I pulled all this data from all the MSG units,
Yeah.
and I
To
started
everybody out there who's watching who's not former Air Force, that is not monosodium glutamate. Just
the mission support
mission
group,
support group.
right? Mission support group, parallel organization to operations or health or and some of the other pillars that are out there, missions or maintenance groups, and so on and so forth. So in that group, I grabbed all that data and presented that to her, and that started thinking. When I started pulling all this data, and she basically wanted that so that she's gripping and grinning with whoever, state, local, or federal, she'd be able to talk about the impact the
Yeah.
installation had on whoever she was talking to. And
Yeah.
that got me thinking about like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I had the data of like my unit, like I was security forces. So like, could I pull my security forces data from logistics or from the vehicle fleet or from wherever to see how our people is doing in their system? So I started nerding out on this. Didn't make much progress, but a kernel was set
Yeah.
with this idea. And then I also knew that because I was getting close to 20 at that point. I was like, I didn't want to retire in Goodfellow. I could have if I wanted to, and I was looking for the next opportunity.
Yeah.
Because when I was a senior airman, I had 3 dream jobs I wanted to do in combat arms before I went to even the schoolhouse. I wanted to get back and teach at the schoolhouse. I wanted to be that cool CADM guy that got attached to special forces, and then I wanted to be a functional manager at a MAGCOM to do those things. I got check mark on the schoolhouse. Never got to do the thing with the special forces guy in the way that I wanted to do it, but an opportunity presented itself to go down to the Air Force Security Forces Center down at Lackland, where I got to live the stand-up of the Air Force Installation Mission Support Center. And so when that stood up, the Security Forces Center realigned from underneath the Pentagon and what at the time Headquarters Air Force, now it's DAF, Department of Air Force, was realigned underneath IMSC as a primary subordinate unit under Air Force Material Command. And so living that stand-up, all of a sudden when the dust settled, I ended up leading the team. So now I was in charge of the entire small arms program, where I was responsible for basically a $2.5 billion portfolio, where I had a small team and we took care of the life cycle management of all the acquisitions of firearms, ammunition, qualification, training, development, and firing ranges. Well, as this new unit was standing up, the 2- and 4-star generals, the 2-star now retired Major General Carter would become the first commander of IMSC, as well as I think it was General Wolfenberger, who was the AFMC commander, came into our office. And she basically, the 2-star asked, Jim, what's the status of all the small arms ranges in the United States Air Force? And she's like, if I had $1 to spend, where should I spend it? And I was like, I have no idea, ma'am, but I'll get back to you. I'll find an answer. As a part of this stand-up, we used to have 14 people globally, so each major command would have a combat arms person attached to the staff. Well, when IMSC stood up, because it was also part of a manpower realignment, our office ended up being responsible for all of it. So we used to have 14 people globally, and when the dust settled, we had 4 people locally to still provide, still provide that support across 97 installations globally. And
that's the Air Force, the Air Force way of doing more with less, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, but I got to access technology. Because of all the things I've been doing up to that point. And by that point, I'd gotten my master's in IT project management.
Okay.
So,
nice.
So I had ideas about how to leverage technology, and we leaned in heavy. Well, one of the things about her question, I basically started pulling data from civil engineering data, real property and asset management related data, budget data, and then our own training data for all of us to be able to create what I'll end up calling the small arms range model, data model.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to build a one-to-end list and prioritize them based on what would end up becoming 5 variables. And so I was able to one-to-end the list. So I go back to her probably about 3-4 months later, and I say, "Ma'am, you have 197 individual firing ranges across 97 complexes, and 99 of those 197 firing ranges need to be modernized or replaced within the next 10 years, and we're going to need $1.2 billion to do it."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Wow, that's a great answer. We don't have that much money right now in the budget. Could you come up with a strategy? And have we exceeded the capacity of our firing ranges?" Great questions, ma'am. No idea. Let me go back to my nerdery, and I will figure it out. And by this point, I had ops research folks that were supporting me because I gained so much momentum in this. And IMSC was looking for some quick wins to be able to show the value of IMSC and the value it can provide back. And so this ended up becoming one of those real critical stories to tell.
Yeah.
And so she retires. Next 2-star comes in, General Spacey. He's now retired as well.
I remember him.
So Major General Spacey, he and I, in my leadership and him, would talk a lot about the investment strategy. Well, her question about have we exceeded the capacity allowed me the opportunity to look at the answer in a different way. And one of my civil engineering counterparts and I came up with the idea of, we were able to create a metric, and we called it the utilization metric.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I build you a facility, it's going to be available to you 24/7, 365, right? And so, but is that investment necessary, and is it a good investment long-term from our taxpayer dollars, right? So my mind was like, how could I look at this? If I build you a 14-point indoor firing range, it might, in 2018 or 2017 dollars, it might cost $10.5 million, right? But if I built that facility for you and you only used it 25% of the year, was that the best investment? Would it have been cheaper for me to put you on a plane and fly you somewhere? Or one of the other things she wanted me to look at was the public-to-public, public-to-private partnerships.
Yeah.
And so could we leverage those as a part of the solution? Would it be better for us to partner with our state or local or other DoD counterparts?
Right.
And so fast forward to May of 2018, and General Spacey made a data-driven decision, right? So I'm building out a data-driven model, and he slapped the table on a $954 million 30-year strategy to right size and right type all the small arms ranges in the active duty portfolio. Yeah. And while I was going through that effort, I was growing my network. I was meeting a lot of people in my transition. And I got basically a job offer I couldn't refuse, talked to the wife and the kids, and made sure everybody was included in the discussion. And because of the network, because of the 3, 5, 10-year goals that the chief had given me great examples to, I was able to start crystallizing what that would look like on the outside.
Yeah.
And so, and as a part of that process, I went through TAPS. TAPS at the time helped me set some expectations in my mind on a few things. But at the time, it was Centurion Alliance, I think was the name of the company out of Houston. And they came in and augmented. So they gave a free 1-day transition assistance outside of the military's transition assistance. And at the time, they were phenomenal. I mean, they still are phenomenal, but they did a great job in helping me be successful in what the interview process would look like, what the how to write resume, all the different stuff to be really successful in a lot of those different aspects. And so there were things about the military one, and I was also the first person in my unit at the time to do SkillBridge. And so I got to do SkillBridge, and I learned about SkillBridge through the TAPS, through TAPS and everything else. So they both helped me understand how to be able to make that transition and how to do it successfully, coupled with the free work that I'd done from the chief to be able to also make that successful.
Yeah. I feel like everybody I've talked to who has had some type of negative experience going through tap, um the one of the biggest issues is that it's so much information to cover. Like, hey, you've spent X number of years, a lot of times you spent 20 plus years in the Air Force. Now, we have some things to tell you before you get out, you know, when you go out in the civilian world. And it could be it could be a lot. Like there's a lot. I went through twice. I went through once in 2014 when I thought I was going when I was contemplating taking early retirement, and then went through again in 2015 when
That's
I
actually what I
actually
was going to
retired.
say. Is I know a lot of smart people that would do that. They would, even if you don't know that you're going to get out, you should go, because
Yeah,
there's so much
yeah.
information
I
to go through. And the reality is that, like, if I could, like, for me and my family, um, I didn't want to leave until I had a job offer, right? Because I'm the primary breadwinner in my family,
yeah.
and so the risk is too high if I
Mhm.
couldn't guarantee something. And I'd have people coming up to me in the military. I had a couple of colonels and some other folks that come, Jim, you're going to make it on the outside. You're going to be really successful. And I was like, listen, with all due respect, I love you. You're amazing. But that's like one criminal telling another criminal in
Yeah,
prison they're going to make it on the outside. And it's like, I need somebody from the
yeah.
outside to come and
Right.
tell me I'm going to be successful. And it was
Exactly.
actually it was a really great friend of mine, that a mentor that gave me some advice and helped me. And he was on the outside and was like, "You're going to be successful on the outside." I was like, "Cool." Now I heard it from somebody on the outside. I can believe it. And
Yeah,
then setting me up and mentoring me through that process.
yeah. So, what would you say was like the most difficult part of your transition to the civilian world?
I'd say it's still there in a different way. Um, Mission,
Hmm.
knowing that in the military, I don't have to worry about my paycheck, right?
Right.
As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and
Right.
excelling, you don't have to worry about your paycheck coming in.
Right.
You don't have to worry about, per se, right? To your left and to your right, right? You have a level of professionalism and a level of people that are surrounding you and that can help you out.
Hmm.
And that we're all doing this for something that's greater than ourselves.
Correct.
And I would say that the shift on the outside has been, and it's been easier for me, but still not without its bumps.
Yeah.
Has been mentally working through the process of, which is why it's so important to know your why, right?
Right.
That advice I had from my boss, my chief, they talked about 3, 5, and 10 years was also based on know your why, like Simon Sinek talks about your golden
Right.
circle. You have to know what your why is. You've got all these years of experience in the military. Take some time and reflection to figure out what were aspects of that military experience that you enjoyed. What were the stuff that
Hmm.
you didn't like, right? Because those
Hmm.
become evaluation factors as you're looking for the next opportunity.
Right.
And so as I made the transition, a lot of it was making the shift of, now I'm my own why, right? So my mission isn't something I'm joining, per se, but it's also, looking for fulfillment in the work,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
In the things that you want to be able to do, the problems that you want to solve by looking and analyzing those things,
Hmm.
but also realizing that, um, at the end of the day, in private industry, um, uh, you have to win work, right? You
Yeah.
have to make sales. You need to
Yeah.
be able to do those things in order for you to even have a job, right? So everything
Right.
is tied to revenue. Understanding how, one of the challenges I had, that I ended up overcoming, was in the military, we're taught how to organize, train, and equip. We've got all this doctrine. We got how we're supposed to do all of our stuff, all the way down to task orders and our job descriptions and all of these different tasks on how to do things. And you can read our, policy and guidance and doctrine to figure out all of that stuff. But when you get on the outside, there may not be that,
Yeah.
right? Like,
No.
I transitioned into the professional services firm, And
Mhm.
so it was, they would be like a practice director and a practice and programs. And I'm like, I understand program, but what are
Yeah.
these other words that you're talking about?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had great advice from the CEO at the time, and he told me to read a book, Managing the Professional Services Firm. It was written in like the 80s or 90s, and it still holds true to today. And so
Oh.
once I read that book, I was like, oh, this is how it operates.
Yeah.
This is what they mean by a practice. This is how the money is earned in these things. And I was able to have some epiphanies, like
Mhm.
if you and I worked for Ford and we'd overlook a maintenance, the assembly line, we have raw parts on one side and automobiles rolling off on the right, we could understand that their product is automobiles.
Right.
But wrapping your brain around like a professional services firm was like, what is the equivalent of that? And I had the epiphany of like, oh, our product is projects. And so
Yeah.
our ability to look at, well, the government's got a problem to solve and they're looking for help to solve it.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
the birth of the problem that ends up becoming a project, aka a contract that you're
Right.
trying to win, right? So there's this
Yeah.
whole pre-sales funnel all the way down to proposals, and then the hard part starts when you win the work and you got to go deliver on it, to deliver on the
Right.
promises that you set,
Yeah.
right? So it's understanding that business
I hope.
process,
Yeah, and hopefully you didn't underscope it. That was
right?
I can't tell you how
Underscope
many
it,
times that.
yeah,
Oh my gosh! Like
or
what?
or
It's like yeah,
overprice it,
what?
and then you lose on price.
Yeah, it's like what? Yeah, that's really good. Um, I think anytime like while I was in the Air Force, the mission was like either like this was my unit's mission or it was like big picture, like more big picture. Everything is like the mission, the mission, the mission, and then yeah, getting into the corporate setting, it's like what exactly is our mission? What is the and people look at me, mission? And I'm like, like what do we do? Like what is the thing that what are we working toward? And for a piece of advice that somebody gave me before I even transition out was like, he had been in the Air Force and he was a retired NCO also, and he said, oh yeah, one thing, when you go to the corporate world, like if you choose not to go into civil service or like defense contract, if you go into like the corporate world, your mission is to make more money. He's like, if you're okay with that, then you have at it. But he said, for me, I needed to have a mission of like, you know, something bigger than myself, something bigger than, just this small thing. And I get it, I understand that. And I've been in both now.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, I see that. I see the mission. I look back at my time in the companies that I worked for in the past. And I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, I see it. And exactly like what you were saying, the pre-sales down to, all this stuff. It's like, yeah, I've experienced a lot of that.
But your
And
ability to understand, because like what you described, when you go to talk to airmen out on the gate or, in the maintenance community or the missile community, it's so important to help them understand what they do and how it ties to national strategic strategy, right? You could walk
yeah,
that dog if you even sit down for a couple minutes, you're able to quickly align. I'm at this base protecting this asset, which
yeah.
goes to this, and you can walk that dog really easily.
Hmm.
And it turns out people actually want to know that. And if you spend
Yeah,
any time on the outside figuring out that, if you're in back office or you're in corporate IT, or if I'm on a project in government contracting, how is that driving revenue? How is that enabling us to grow as a company? And you go, well, it's your past performance. You got to kill it on projects. We need
yeah,
good CPARS ratings. We need you to go above and beyond and become a trusted advisor, solve
yeah,
complex problems, because that output helps us win the next work. And then do you have any innovations or any ideas that you've come up with? Or how can we capture those things and come up with new ways of providing value back to the client? Maybe mod the contract or compete on the next contract for
yeah,
any
yeah,
innovations, right? So the outputs of those things, when you can help people understand, hey, what you're doing on your work matters, not just for what you're doing in the client that you're doing it with, but it also helps us as a company. And this is how you can contribute and do all
Right.
these things,
Yep.
or write
Open up more
proposals, or
opportunities. Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Because you run into, if you're on contract, you you're as close to the client as anybody else is in the company. And so you're going to be able to
Yeah.
see things and hear things and see opportunities that you may not be able to see otherwise.
Hmm.
Or if you're not even in government contracting and you're able to see, if I'm in an organization in the fast food industry and I work up at corporate, my ability to understand that I'm doing this down here, maybe it's making burgers and it's doing a great job and doing customer success and helping go above and beyond with your customers, and then how that pays back into either word of mouth for people to go like that was an amazing experience, or I'm getting new revenue and I'm getting people to come back. Positive reviews online to help the company grow, which means you get to keep your job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
At the very brass tacks of things, and then if you show enough initiative and wherewithal, you might be able to grow and manage that restaurant or go up into
Yeah.
higher levels of the organization because you understand the brass tacks of. At the end of the day, McDonald's, the corporate big, it is a restaurant at the end of the day, and you have to know how the restaurant works. And I'd say that for and senior NCOs especially, not to say that it doesn't happen anywhere else, but from my experience, senior NCOs are in this really unique positions, and even some of the tech sergeants, that you're put in this position of like you have to turn strategy into reality, right?
Hmm.
The commanders, the officers appointed over us, they have these visions and they want to be able to execute it. But to make that a reality, the senior NCOs understand the people aspect, the mechanical, both figuratively and literally, of the organization, how to
Right.
get all of that to hum, how to be able to get high performing teams, how all of that stuff works together. And they're in a really unique position to be able to make that transition from the military. They just have to think through those things as a part of that transition.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. You know, man, I can't believe it's almost been 50 minutes already. This has been a very interesting conversation. So, uh, before we go, because because I don't know, I was gonna say something. I lost my train of thought. I have like sickness brain, like I'm not feeling great. What I was gonna say was like if you had one piece of advice for somebody who's specifically getting out of the military and trying to make their way into something that is like for me, when I went into the corporate world, I didn't know anybody else who was going into the corporate world. It was uncharted waters. So I'm sure there are people out there. I can't be the only person who there are people out there who are going into the corporate world or into medicine or something, and they don't know anybody who's taken that path. Do you have one piece of advice that you could give? And I'll
Know
put it
your
in the
why.
chat. I'll
Know
put it in the
know your
chat so
why,
it's everywhere. Oh yeah, that's a good one, man. That's always a good one.
right? Know your why. Know your, because at the end of the day, one of the things that I came up on when I was coming out of the military, especially if you retire. This isn't.
Mhm.
It still works for if you're transitioning before you retire, and post retirement. But one of the things I started realizing was I could be picky, right? And what does
Mhm.
that really mean? I came up with three things as an evaluation factor when looking at a new opportunity and continuous evaluation while at an opportunity.
Mhm.
The first and foremost is culture, research culture, right? We've all been in units in the military that had amazing culture, and we've been in probably more units than we did that had crappy culture.
Mhm.
So you now have the opportunity to be selective,
Mhm.
because you're going to spend a third of your life wherever you go to, with colleagues over there. So you better be darn sure that it matches the culture that you really deserve.
Yeah.
So culture first and foremost, right? In my gray section of my books back here, there's a great book called The Ideal Team Player, called Humble, Hungry, and Smart. Is the key attributes of being an ideal team player, and those attributes is what you look for in the culture. right?
Mhm.
You want leaders that are humble, that can admit that they're wrong, they know what they know, and that they don't know what they don't know, just
Yeah.
like I do every day. You want people that are hungry, right? That want to be able to work and want to do better and want to make themselves better. And then smart stands for people smart, right? You want them to be able to have some wherewithal on how to communicate and talk and be professional and those sort of things. So that's culture first. Second is job description, not title. Job description. And so job description goes to your why. What's your why? What are the things about you learned about your military service that you liked or that you found really intriguing about it? So your why aligns to your job description. Are those things in alignment between those two? And then the third and final thing is compensation. Know your worth. Go to salary.com. Go out there to the Glassdoor. Go figure out what your worth is. And then go talk to people. Go talk to Tito. Go talk to Jim. Go talk to other people that have transitioned. We'll tell you our story. I'm happy to help mold, mentor, and educate people on that you miss in both the civilian version and the formal version of transition assistance. Is salary negotiation is a critical thing. If you don't
Oh
know
yeah.
your worth, you are going to be taken advantage of through and through.
Yep.
What I mean by total compensation, I mean like your base pay, your bonuses, your heck, even what type of software laptop you want to have, PTO. It's all negotiable.
Yep.
Don't don't think that it's not negotiable. So compensation, and then you constantly evaluate those three while you're at the opportunity. That would be
Yeah.
my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I put it in the chat. So, um, for some reason, it only goes to YouTube. So, hey, if you're out there and you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it pop up now. And it's like, if you watch the replay, you're going to have to wait until like 51 minutes and then it pops up. So, but that's some really good advice. I was thinking about your experience, your experiences doing some really cool things in the Air Force and really cool things in the corporate world and trying to think, I'm like, what are the stories that I tell people about the cool things? I think about the coolest thing. I don't know. There are a few things that I thought were pretty cool about my career, but like one of the things like brought it to mind. You started talking about generals, and I was like, wait a minute. I sang the national anthem for the Second Air Force change of command ceremony. And I remember seeing somebody, like I was at the podium and I'm singing, and I see this guy standing there, and he's got like this vest on, and it's like either says, I'm a reporter or I'm a fisherman. And here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, I don't know, he could have been either one, but then he had like a camera on a tripod. And I was like, that guy looks really familiar, all the while I'm singing, minute and a half song, and then I'm like, okay. And then I went home after that day and I get a message like getting spammed on Facebook by all these people, in the community there. Hey, did I see you on WLOX today? And I was like, what? It's like, yeah, I was on the local, it was the local news. That's who
Oh
that was.
wow.
I was like, oh, okay. I don't know, man. I was just trying to sing the song, doing my best. That was such an interesting moment too, because I was out on leave and then I came back to the office and my boss was like, hey, Lieutenant Colonel so and so wants to talk to you. So I go down there and I was like, yes, ma'am. She's like, General, you know, General, who was it? I can't even remember, but it was the General Patrick. He was retiring. He was on his way out, and so General Patrick, he's a major general, and then we were getting Brigadier General Brown, who ended up becoming a major general also. And I sang at his promotion ceremony. That was awesome. But General Patrick gave a message to this Lieutenant Colonel Spencer, and she said, um, "You have been requested to sing at the change of command." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right, let's do it." And my boss told me, he's like, "Yeah, I didn't think that was a request. I think they were telling you that you were singing there." And I was like, Yeah, I felt that way too, but it's like, what am I going to say? No? What an opportunity. That sounds pretty cool, right? And so out of that, um, the General Brown, the incoming commander, was like, "Hey, my promotion ceremony is next month, and I want you to sing at that too." And I was like, "Okay, sounds good to me."
It's
So
weird how like the things that it's weird. It's so cool. Weird's not the right word, but it's so cool when you put your heart into something and you have no expectation other than you just want to do a good job and just kill it.
yeah, yeah,
And um, the most beautiful things come out of it.
yeah,
The 2-star asking me to do the thing that I did ended up in a way I could have never imagined, and I wouldn't be where I am today. The
yeah,
transition, all the cool data and AI and Gen AI, all the cool stuff I've been able to do since I retired. None of that wouldn't have happened had I not spent the time to make sure that I did that thing right and made sure that I was thinking about it from all the different aspects, from the 2 stars perspective, the 4 stars perspective, so that they understood the risk
yeah,
associated, because they're still executing that strategy today.
yeah,
They're still executing this thing that I built. As a matter of fact, you mentioned Fairchild.
yeah.
Um, uh, um, Fairchild actually has a new firing range in a joint thing between Spokane County and Fairchild. A new
Oh,
firing
wow.
range that was they cut the ribbon in 2023 because of the work that we had done in data-driven decision making back in 17 and 18. That they
That's
were able to
cool.
do it. Otherwise, Fairchild would still be waiting for a new firing range today if it wasn't for that
Wow.
model and the things that we did.
Man, that's cool. Yeah, that's so interesting. That's like the, ripples in a pond, right? Just like
Yeah,
ripples in a pond.
ripples in
And
a
I
pond.
I think like a lot of the lessons I think that I can take away from, your experience and mine is like we said yes in kind of uncomfortable situations that opened up so much, um so
Yeah.
much opportunity. So you know what? We're almost at an hour. That's crazy. I have to go take some Mucinex.
Okay. Get help. Get healthy, Tito.
Yeah, and so I'm going to end the stream, but yeah, I'll talk to you for a couple minutes in the studio. So please don't go anywhere. But
Okay.
I just want to mention to everybody out there that I'm going to be taking a little break. Hey, breaks are healthy, but I'll be back in 3 weeks with Eric Kim. Eric Kim is also U.S. Air Force veteran, and he's doing big things in Central Florida. Um, and also, if you are interested in helping to support my channel, I am a Playfair partner affiliate. So if you want to level up your data skills as well as help me out and support my channel, you can click on the link in my YouTube channel description, and then I put it on a comment on the post for this event, also on LinkedIn. So everybody, it's been great. I didn't know that I would have the energy for this tonight. I really just wanted to go to sleep, but I'm so thankful that I did not, because I've had a great time. It was a really good conversation, very interesting, and lots to pull from there. And I appreciate your time and coming on here and sharing your story. And so with that, I'll see you guys in 3 weeks. Peace.